On the sun-washed edge of a quiet riverside town, where the late morning light shimmered like liquid gold across the moving water, my life changed in a way I still don't fully understand. It began with a scream, sharp, sudden, and slicing through the calm like a warning from fate itself. I had been jogging on the dusty footpath, trying to outrun the heavy thoughts of another difficult week, when I saw her falling. The moment seemed suspended, the world slowing as the girl in the pale yellow dress slipped on the mossy rocks near the riverbank and vanished beneath the surface, the water swallowing her before she could breathe. It wasn't heroism that made me jump in after her, it was something instinctive, something that didn't leave room for hesitation. All I remember is the cold shock of water, the frantic search for her arm, and the desperate pull as I dragged her limp body back toward the shore. Her head fell back, her lips pale, her breathing gone. And I, trembling from fear rather than cold, pressed my mouth against hers in the old, basic rhythm of CPR. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unexpected ways strangers can change each other's lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Stories of Kindness. It keeps stories like this alive. When she finally coughed, gasping for air, her eyes fluttered open with confusion and the painful brightness of someone pulled back from the edge. The sun was behind me, painting her face with shards of light as she stared at me, trying to understand what had happened. She raised a trembling hand to her lips and whispered in disbelief, "What are you doing? Did you just kiss me?" I felt my stomach twist, my heart hammering against my chest as I stammered, I was just giving first aid." For a moment, she just stared at me with those deep brown eyes, trying to judge whether she believed me or not. Then she looked away, hugging her arms tightly around herself, shivering in shock. That was the beginning. Her name was Irina, unusual, melodic, something that stayed in my mind long after the moment had passed. She was 24, like me, a university student studying wildlife science, which explained why she had been near the river taking photos of migratory birds. She had slipped while climbing onto a rock for a better angle. As I helped her sit up and checked if she was stable enough to stand, she kept avoiding my eyes, embarrassed, shaken, and trying to piece together the fragments of a moment that could have ended her life. I didn't press her with questions. All I said was that she needed to see a doctor, but she refused, saying she just needed a little time to breathe. We walked slowly along the riverside path, the late morning sun warming the grasses around us. The world looked deceptively peaceful compared to the chaos of the last few minutes. She was quiet, holding her wet dress away from her legs, her sandals squelching with each step. I offered her my jacket, ignoring her initial hesitation. When she finally accepted, I noticed how small and fragile she looked inside its folds, like someone trying to rebuild herself after a moment of fear she never expected. I didn't think I would see her again after that. Rescues like these become memories, intense, unforgettable, but fleeting. But fate, it seemed, wasn't finished with either of us. The next morning, while I sat at the same riverside bench where everything had unfolded, I heard footsteps approaching. When I looked up, there she was, wearing a soft lavender shirt and denim jeans, her hair pulled into a loose braid that shimmered under the daylight. She looked healthier, more composed, but no less curious than the first time. "You come here often?" she asked, standing with her camera bag slung over her shoulder. I managed a smile, replying that the river helped me think, even when thinking felt like lifting mountains. That made her laugh lightly, a sound so warm that even the river breeze seemed to hush to hear it. She sat beside me, leaving a respectful distance between us. She thanked me again for saving her, this time without the embarrassment of yesterday. Then she said something I didn't expect, "I want to repay you, but I don't really know how." I told her that saving her wasn't a debt she owed me, that anyone would have done the same. But she shook her head, insisting not everyone would jump into a river for a stranger. Over the next few days, she kept appearing at the riverside, not always to talk, sometimes just to sit, photograph birds, or sketch quietly in her notebook. She said it helped her calm down after the incident, and somehow, my presence made her feel safe. I didn't understand why. I was just an ordinary guy, struggling through a life full of disappointments. My job at a local repair shop barely paid enough. My father had been sick for months, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily against my chest every day. I wasn't someone people usually depended on, not emotionally, not practically. But with her, everything felt different. She listened. She noticed things others didn't. She asked how I was doing with a sincerity rare in today's world. One late morning, as the sunlight dappled across her sketchbook, she asked me what had been troubling me before the rescue. I hesitated, not wanting to burden her, but she insisted. So I told her everything: my father's illness, the financial strain, the fear of losing the workshop job, the sense of sinking deeper into a life that never seemed to give me any relief. I spoke more than I intended, but she didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me either. She simply listened, as though every word mattered. After I finished, she closed her sketchbook gently and said, "Sometimes life pushes us into deep water to show us how strong we actually are." It was a simple sentence, but the way she said it made it feel like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She touched my shoulder lightly, not as comfort but as acknowledgement, of struggle, of survival, of being human. Days turned into weeks, and our quiet friendship grew roots. We didn't call it anything, neither friendship nor something more, because naming things sometimes makes them fragile. Instead, we simply existed in each other's spaces, filling silence with meaning and moments with ease. I helped her carry equipment for her photography assignments, while she helped me write out financial plans to manage my father's medicines more efficiently. She would bring homemade sandwiches to the riverside and hand one to me without asking if I was hungry. I would walk her home if her project kept her outside longer than planned. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't intentional. It was natural, two lives slowly intertwining without realizing they were becoming necessary to one another. But life tests every bond, especially the ones that feel too pure, too fragile. One bright afternoon, when the river sparkled under the sky like a scattered dream, Irene showed up with swollen eyes. She tried to hide it, but I knew something was wrong. Her university project had been rejected by a senior professor, her months of effort dismissed in just a few minutes. Even worse, she had been told she wasn't field smart enough after her accident. It broke her confidence in ways I hadn't expected. She sat beside me on the grass, hugging her knees, staring blankly at the water. I didn't know how to comfort her except by sitting quietly beside her. Words felt small. So I let silence speak for me. After a long pause, she whispered, "I hate feeling weak." I shook my head, telling her weakness wasn't falling, it was refusing to get up afterwards. She looked at me then, really looked, and something changed in her eyes. She leaned against my shoulder, letting the tears slip silently down her cheeks. And as the wind rustled through the trees, I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become. The next morning, she asked me to accompany her to submit an appeal for her project review. She said she needed someone who believed in her standing beside her. I agreed without a second thought. Together, we walked into the university office where the same professor questioned her again, but this time she spoke firmly, supported by evidence and confidence she had regained overnight.